I think most of you are familiar with the very famous Asian Indian prostitute, Uruj. Actually, no, she's not a prostitute. She's a lawyer. I don't know if it's a big difference. Uruj Rahman is a public interest lawyer in New York. And if it seems like I'm defaming her, well, it's very well deserved. Why? Because this is the woman, the activist who firebombed a police cruiser during the 2020 George Floyd riots. She's one of these so-called social justice warriors. And she was arrested and she was facing 10 years in prison, which seems appropriate if you try to firebomb a police vehicle. But the Biden administration decided to start protecting her and pushing a judge, and this is U.S. District Judge Brian Cogan of the Eastern District of New York, liberal Democrat, to give this woman a very light sentence. And in fact, he did. So here's what she gets: 15 months in prison. Wow. This is outrageous. You've got January 6 defendants, nonviolent, who've done nothing, who have comparable or worse sentences than this. Not to mention this woman was never in solitary confinement. In fact, left-wing activists came forward and put up money for her to be bailed. So she was given the opportunity to have bail. Why? Because she was not deemed to be a danger to society in the way that, let's say, just say some mom or grandmother or some guy in January said, there's a danger to society. We got to lock him up right now and keep him locked up until trial. Why? Because he's an election denier. Now, this woman, Uruj Rahman, and her accomplice, a guy named Collinford Mathis, these are people who, they've been getting these glowing media profiles, and now they evidently have this kind of sweetheart deal with the Biden DOJ and with a judge going along. So, I mean, justice is really about proportionality. It's not just so you get punished, but the punishment should bear some resemblance, some proportion to the offense. And for someone who has engaged, in a very premeditated way, this woman, Uruj Rahman, and Mattis, her accomplice, were exchanging texts beforehand, talking about the importance of bombing all police fire stations. In fact, here she goes. I'm now quoting, "I hope they burn everything down. Need to burn all police stations down and probably the courts too." So now, isn't this domestic terrorism? It's premeditated. It's followed up with violent action. And all she gets is 15 months, 2 years of probation, and pay a restitution fee of $30,000. And that may seem, well, $30,000. But this is a woman who makes over $200,000 working at a law firm. In fact, specifically, according to the court documents, she makes $255,000 a year. So she's a very well-paid, very well-educated. Her accomplice, by the way, is a graduate of Princeton and New York Law School. She went to Fordham. So these are people who know better. Not to mention the fact that they have had legal training, so they can't say, well, I really didn't know this was against the law. That makes absolutely no sense. They're trained in the law. And so let's look at how she gets this reduced sentence. The Biden DOJ writes a document where they basically say she's, quote, coping with unprocessed trauma. So she's undergoing some personal difficulties. She had apparently abusive partnership relationships. She's having trouble with her relationships. She was, quote, taunted as a Muslim after 9/11. What kind of nonsense is all this? They also claim that, quote, her commitment to social justice should earn her a more lenient sentence. And sure enough, the judge goes on to praise her and says that she is, quote, a remarkable person who did a terrible thing one night. You can see the judge right away minimizing. It's sort of like, well, she's led a very exemplary life. Well, there's no evidence of that. What's exemplary about her life? Just because she's a left-wing radical and she's been in an abusive relationship, which probably she was giving as much as she got. She's traumatized. Well, people who are strange and weird and get into weird relationships have trauma, very often trauma that they impose on others too or on themselves. So there's nothing admirable here. This is basically a woman who's decided to use violence to achieve political ends that she can't achieve any other way, and she thinks it's okay, and they planned it. And so the fact we say multiple times that there is a two-tier system of justice in this country, but it's not just at the highest level. It's not just that the Clintons get away with it, or Hunter Biden gets away with it, or the Biden family gets away with it. We see that left-wing activists on the street also get away with it.